Today we're going to focus on structural changes to the Constitution. This will be the last video for Unit 2, but we're going to focus on the amendments that changed different aspects of the Constitution. We're going to start with the 11th Amendment, which prohibited a state from being sued in federal court by citizens of another state or a nation. This amendment was added in response to a Supreme Court decision Chisholm versus Georgia in 1793, where the people of South Carolina were allowed to sue the state of Georgia in federal court. In 1804, you had the 12th Amendment, where the Electoral College used separate ballots when voting for president and vice president. Up through that time, whoever came in second was elected as vice president, which was counterproductive in the sense that typically the vice president was bitter towards the president for not being chosen over the president. In 1913, you had the 17th Amendment. People directly elected senators. So up through this point, the state legislatures were responsible for electing senators. This amendment had been proposed a numerous amount of times before, but it really didn't get enough support until 1913. In a way, this kind of took some power away from the states and gave more power to the people. The 20th Amendment in 1933 set new dates for presidential and vice presidential inaugurations. So January 20th of the following year of the election was when the inaugurations would take place, and the new date for Congress beginning its term was January 3rd. Before this, it was March, so you really went December, January, February, 3 months before the newly elected members of Congress and the president began their terms in office. The 22nd Amendment was passed in 1951. It limits the president to a maximum of 2 terms. This was passed as a reaction to FDR being elected to 4 terms in office. Until FDR, the precedent had been set where presidents only ran for 2 terms, and that was established by George Washington being the very first president. 1967, you had the 25th Amendment, which established a process for the vice president to take over the office of the president if the president was disabled. Until this point, if let's say the president had the president was incapable of fulfilling his duties, whether it be a physical issue or an assassination attempt, the president was still the president. The 25th Amendment allows for the vice president to take over the role of the president if they're incapable of the duties of the office. It also established a process for filling the vice presidency as well. And then in 1992, with the 27th Amendment, congressional pay raises would not take effect until the term after they were passed. This was proposed with the Bill of Rights, but it was not ratified until 1992, and it didn't have enough support to ratify until that year, even though this was proposed by James Madison.